Good morning, I guess. Um, First, good job, Marie. Hey, I'm Mia. Um, all right. Sure, but actually, healing? Are you kidding? Why the fuck? Okay, that seems a bit extreme. Um, but yeah, no. That was I mismanaged that completely, actually. Because I figured, oh yeah, I'll set my 8-minute timer and then I'll just make coffee in the meantime. Which would have worked fine, but I also still had to eat. So I don't know quite how I managed that, but there we are. It stopped again. Oh wow. Impressive. But yeah, no, as you can see, I want to talk a bit about setup shops because that's what I was gonna do last week. But I also feel like I'll sit here and talk for 2 hours again. So I figured I'd add another topic. Which is how to get good while still having fun. Because I know how to get good without having fun, so maybe there's something to be learned from my experience. Um, but anyway, I'm gonna just have like a sip of my coffee or something, and then we'll get going as soon as I fucking feel like it. Start it again. Oh my god. Okay, that's pretty big. Well, let's hope the Volvo is built like a tank, eh? Jeez. I'm not actually gonna have a sip of my coffee because that stuff's hot as fuck. So let us not. Hmm. God, that was a bit of a rush, right? Just then. I need to fucking come down here. But yeah, no, setup shops. Normally I wouldn't even bother talking about this so much, but I guess it's been a bit of a big deal, a big topic in sim racing for some reason recently, with everybody and their mother sharing their opinions on that. So I'll do the same thing. Um, I suppose the last thing that I saw was this whole story with this one YouTuber who made this video saying setup shops are like the great scam or whatever. Um, I think that's like about oval stuff and about something specific. I didn't actually watch it or anything. But it seems awfully specific, and I'm pretty sure it's not about any of the setup shops that I nor have experience with, follow even remotely. So I'm not going to comment on that because I don't know. Everyone else seems to be doing just that, but I won't. Instead, I'll just stick to road because oval setups and oval setup shops are just not something I know anything about. Now I could like. Do you want to go for the cheap way of starting or not? Yeah, let's fuck it. Let's do it the cheap way. The great scam. They say. I don't know. I disagree rather passionately. Um, I also saw an empty box video or something saying, or like I think the description or like the title or something said, "Stop paying for setups." I'm not sure I agree with either of those things. Hello there. Um, but yeah, no, and to be honest, what I'd like to do is just go back in time a little bit, back to let's say 2017, before setup shops were a thing at all. On iRacing. That was back when I started, essentially. Setup shops were not yet a thing, and basically, how did people go about making setups? The pros did what pros do, and that is they know stuff. They know how to set up the cars they know how to set them up to go quickly in iRacing, and they just do that. And what do the rest of us do, so to speak? I feel like a lot of people simply ran baseline if they didn't know any better. And a lot of people use chat setups on the forums, or off the forums, I should say. A lot of people are longing for those days when paid setups weren't a thing and you could just simply get free shared ones off of the forums. I think that's an awfully simplistic way of looking at the whole situation, because what they're not considering is who makes those setups. Like, who puts setups on Setup Sync? You know. Because, I don't know, I'm gonna sound like a dick here no matter what I do, no matter what I say, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. A lot of the forum setups are hot fucking garbage. It's so often like some guy that can't really drive or something, maybe like, I don't know, 2000 R rating or whatever, clicks around a little bit until the car's, I don't know, maybe putting low downforce from Monza or something, you know, like, incredible. But then, like, as long as it doesn't spin all the time, the setup's good. But it's just not actually good. And who's giving you setup advice on the forums as well, you know, if like, I used to do that quite a lot back in those days. I've stopped because it's pointless. But, you know, if, I personally have a bit of a fucking idea about vehicle dynamics and sort of, you know, how setup stuff works, you know. I also have a decent idea, or like, especially back then, had a decent idea of what you need to do in iRacing specifically to set up certain cars to go quickly. Like, for example, running minimum tire pressures and maximum wing in the GTEs. That was just always, or for a long time back then, that was just the way to go, and any wing setting less than maximum wasn't viable. You know, and then, you know, occasionally you come across people that suggest running minimum wing because in the slow corners it doesn't help and you spend the most amount of time on the lap in the slow corners, and therefore you should like maximize top end, like straight line speed, because the fast corners are over so quickly you don't spend a lot of time there, so you don't lose much time there. Yeah, that happened. And then, you know, I just have to wonder if it's not just like a massive case of rose-tinted glasses looking back at the times when like basically everybody ran some version of a shit setup, you know, be it back then terrible iRacing baselines, be it something terrible shared off of the forums, or something terrible that you built not knowing how to build fast setups. I'm not sure it's such a good thing, you know. I'm really not. But anyway, so hey there. So yeah, setup shops came along, and I'm not going to talk about any specific setup shop or whatever. That's none of my business. It's beside the point as well. Really, I'm not going to do any of that. Basically, it must have been around that time. It must have been around 2017, I think, that setup shops first started appearing. Maybe late 17, early 18, something. I don't know. Point being, so what does a setup shop do? You pay a small amount of money for a setup that is actually good. That's the idea here. And how do you know it's actually good? Well, shit, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say if Maxime makes an LMP2 setup, chances are it's pretty good. Heck, if Gianni makes a GTE setup, chances are it's pretty quick, you know? And that's the whole selling point of setup shops, is you have certified quick people that know a thing or two about the about how to iRacing and how to build setups. And you don't have to learn and spend a lot of time to build a competitive setup, because you can simply buy one. Simply buy something that is significantly better than the iRacing baselines that were really shit back then, and significantly closer to what significantly closer to the best, really. And back then, one thing has changed a little bit, and that is back then, setup shops had to do pretty good to establish themselves. They had to do a good job. Because, like with the abundance of free setups that are just available on Setup Sync, on the forums, whatever. I mean, they had a point to, they had to prove their whole business model. They had to prove that it's actually worth paying, I don't know, £5, £10 a month for setups. They had to make sure that it's actually worth it for people. Because otherwise, why not just grab something off a Setup Sync? People needed to think that the setups are actually better. And then like a few new competitors appeared later. Even now, every few months, it feels like a new setup shop appears. But yeah, no. One thing I will say that has changed a bit is that I don't feel there's as much pressure on setup shops anymore to actually provide you with the best possible product. I think that's something that's something that I do think has changed. I mean, simply just the fact that it is now the norm to buy setups from some setup shop, and the fact that pretty much every setup shop provides you with setup for the most popular cars. It's I don't think there's as much pressure on them to like really provide you with a good product anymore. Because also the free setup sharing sort of scene, like that whole culture on the forums, that's been as good as killed off. So basically, I don't think they need to, or I don't think they have to provide a good product anymore to make money, and that's a bit upsetting. Now, I should say I haven't been subscribed or haven't used any setup shop setups in some time now. However, I also still remember when the V7 tire model came out on more and more cars, and I remember how certain setup shops dealt with it. Because it used to be, on the V6 tire and GT setups, for example, especially, that everything was kind of similar. There were certain setup shops that like built, slightly more aggressive, slightly more difficult to drive setups, I guess, that were arguably quicker, if you drove them well, of course. And there were some setup shops that built to the same meta, but like basically just built slightly safer setups. But for the most part, everyone ran soft springs, soft ARBs, maximum wing, a lot of rake, minimum tire pressures, That's what pretty much everyone did. If someone had sold you a setup with like way too stiff springs or whatever, I don't think that setup shop would have lasted very long in those days, because it would have just simply been slow and terrible. But now I think with the V7 tire model coming out, the way you build the setups changed so much, and it still keeps changing so often that I don't know. I was under the impression back then that some people just kept building setups in the old way, no matter if it works or not, no matter if you could do something better or not. A lot of setup shops, I don't think, were quite ready to really sell you something yet, because they have as much time to work on the setups as we do when a new build comes out, when a new tire model comes out, whatever. I think a lot of unfinished products sort of was sold to people back then, and I can't really fault the setup shops, because you have to, if someone subscribes for weekly setups for the GTE or something, and there's a tire model change a day before the new week starts, you still gotta push out some setup, that's what people are paying for. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think on the whole, the level isn't as high anymore. And that's what bothers me a fair bit more than the fact that free setup sharing isn't a thing anymore. Because truth be told, having been around back then, I don't think a lot of the stuff that's been shared was in any way better than baseline, or like marginally, but not really worth loading up and using, I don't think. And this ties in kind of nicely with what chat just said. Lately, I'm starting to try to build my setups. From my experience, paid setups can be a good baseline if you know what to touch, but it's pretty frustrating because half the times they're troll setups, but I could be wrong. And you see, the thing is, I feel like I'm seeing and hearing similar things, to be honest. And I don't mean to talk shit about setup shops as a whole and the whole concept of paid setups, but this is pretty much exactly what I mean when I say that there isn't this pressure anymore to build really good setups all of the time. And you know, I certainly agree. I think like if you have no idea how to build a fast racing setup for a particular car, and you may know like vehicle dynamics, you may know like race car engineering stuffs and whatever, you may understand the setup options, but you don't know what's quick and what's not quick. I certainly think that, you know, getting just like maybe a week or like a month of some setup shop is a good way to find out how to build a fast setup. And then from there on out, it's pretty simple, because, you know, like if you see 3 setup shops and all of them are running the softest or second softest spring rate, and you know you don't have to bother with testing really, really stiff spring rates. You know, let's put it that way. But I do often feel that, yes, quantity is more important than quality. That's the thing. Because in a way, we're going back to the pre-setup shop era where, like, on Setup Sync, you could get a setup for everything, pretty much, it seemed. You could just get anything for any car. And now you can pretty much get a setup for anything on every setup shop. But I don't think that like the level is consistently good, or consistently the same even. There's one thing if you pay like £5 a month for shit setups for every car, or 15 quid for good setups for every car, but that's not really how it works. It seems I also don't really feel that pricing and and the value of the actual product and the quality of the actual product align very well. I think it's more knowing what setup shop to buy from for what car. Yes, of course. That's totally a thing, because the initial selling point, the initial thing that to set themselves apart from the competition was to say, we are the pros, we build pro setups, you know, pro. This is the fastest, this is the best performing, this will increase your I rating, this is the shit, basically. And that worked at the time to, you know, establish the brand, I suppose. But then obviously, like, offering a safe option does 2 great things. The first thing it does is it offers a safe option for those who genuinely can't drive the fast shit. And the second thing that it does is, if your fast setup is just simply shit, you can just say, oh no, it's not shit, it's really good. Actually, you just can't drive it. Maybe load up the safe one. And like I said, I'm not saying that any particular setup shop does it this way. I'm not saying they sell the safe one to mask the fact that the fast one is shit or something. I'm not saying that they do that. I'm saying that this is possible. Yeah, because I don't think I think like adding like a clicker front ARB or something, or just like reducing reg a mil or two, that doesn't constitute a change from a safe setup to a fast setup. I don't really think so. Quote, I currently have Apex and VRS subs. Hi Alex, by the way. Mainly, and hi everyone that I haven't said hi to, come to think of it. God damn it, I'm so sorry. I currently have Apex and VRS subs mainly because of the telemetry access and the track guides that come with it. That might give me a little more speed, but I feel like professional advice helps more. Yes. And this is, I don't want to agree, but I have to agree because it's true that professional advice and the telemetry videos and stuff, that helps more if you want to go fast. Let's say if you're new, or you want, or even if you're not new and you want to sort of get quicker, you want to improve, that is a lot more useful than merely loading up a setup and driving the same way you always used to drive. However, if you can already drive, you need good setups. And like Alex, in your particular case, I think you can drive, you need good setups. But yeah, no, and this again ties in very nicely with the next point I was going to be making, because now we've been talking about setup shops, but it's not really fair to talk about some of what's being offered as a setup shop. For example, VRS and Apex in particular, I don't think setup shop is even necessarily a fair way of describing what they offer. Because frankly, it's not how they describe their own product. Because I don't know, VRS has always made it a big point to emphasize that it's not about the setups, primarily that it's about the telemetry, about the videos, about learning how to drive. VRS does stand for Virtual Racing School and not for Virtual Dog Shop, you know? And obviously other setup shops do a similar thing where they provide you with replays, with replay files, with videos, with telemetry files, whatever, with sector times to learn, but I don't think anybody has a product as good for learning as VRS. Because that telemetry overlay thingy, telemetry software thingy is super OP, to be honest. Like, sure, you can do the same thing in Motec or whatever, but it's such a faff to set up, and I just think like even the final product, if you just want like a driver analysis, telemetry software or whatever, I think honestly like the VRS one is just better. It's just really good. And like I know I said I wasn't gonna talk about any specific setup shop, but like the thing is with VRS, if I talk about a really nice like telemetry software, everyone knows it's about VRS anyways, and like, you know, no point there. Wait, the CSS pickup setups made by Danny were used by a handful of test drivers in a couple of rounds this season. Fair enough, I'm not surprised. I can see how that would happen, because like frankly, like in the cup car there's not that many setup options either. And surely I think like if the CSS one has been deemed to be, I don't know, meta, I guess, sure, why not? If the balance is to your liking and it goes quickly, you know, sure thing. I mean, I'd be a bit concerned if we're talking about like, I don't know, NASCAR, or if we're talking about, I don't know, if in the old Formula 1 World Championship, in the GP WCS, if there people had just loaded up some setup of a setup sync or whatever and gone race, you know, World Championship Series with that, I'd be a bit concerned. But I mean, in 2021 on the Cup car, totally not surprised at all. And you know, that's the thing ultimately. Like, as much as I criticize the fact that, you know, the product isn't consistently at a really high level, there are absolutely just good setups. Like, and for the most part, I would say setups are good. I have heard of occasional, I don't know, fuck ups where, like, I don't know, they sell you a high wing setup for a low wing track, whatever. You know, that has happened. And also like a lot of the drama involving allegedly stealing other people's setups to sell or whatever, you know, like I don't even want to talk about that too much. I think from the perspective of a consumer, if you have to, I feel like if you have to ask about setups, you're probably best off just subscribing to something and then you're good. Um, of course, like anyone and everyone can like learn how race cars work, how physics work, and build their own setups and test and practice and all that, of course. But I also understand that that's not something that everyone can or wants to do. But honestly, like I think the thing is, a lot of people say, oh, but then it's the same as fixed setup. If everyone has a paid setup, then it's the same as fixed setup. Or on the flip side, if everyone but me has a paid setup, it's pay to win. And that's like two big points that I often see in the forums that I just think like you can't actually be so stupid. Like, first of all, there's more than one setup shop out there. There's plenty of people. I think probably the majority of people do a click or two to the setup. Be it, I guess break bias is still open in fixed setup series, but like, even when I was still subscribed to setup shops, I pretty much always changed something. Just because I started off of a setup shop setup because I couldn't be bothered, starting from, I don't know, my own baseline and then spending a lot of time on it. I'm happy to let someone else spend that time for me and pay them in return, Even then, I still change things. I think most people do. Most people I talk to do change things. It's totally not the same as a fixed setup series. Especially not if you consider the fact that now, with reworked aero on GTE and GT3, you can actually like run different wing angles. Can you imagine? Yeah. That used to not be a thing, but now you can even change the wing angles. You can even maybe say like, oh, I'll run 2 clicks more and then I'm slow on the straight and faster in the corners. Maybe with the way you drive or whatever. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe the setup shop did it wrong. Maybe the setup shop gave you 1 wing, but you would have been faster with 5. Like no one's saying that every setup shop is doing the same thing and it's perfect. So it's really far from a fixed setup series. I think that's always just a stupid criticism. And the second criticism is obviously that it's pay to win. And it's funny, but it's almost always like slow people making that argument. I don't know, I don't say that stuff in forums anymore because like I always get flamed for suggesting that maybe someone isn't literally Senna fucking reborn. But I can say it here. Half the time, more than half the time, people that complain that it's now pay to win because of paid setups, they're just not good. They're just really not good. I just don't have anything nice to say about that. Like if you're, I don't know, in a second split or third split and fighting to be above the midpoint of the field, like I don't know, like I don't think it's setup shops that are the problem. Like maybe it would have helped back then if you had a good setup and everyone else had like a really shit setup. But yeah, it always comes from like lower rated people who think that that they are already good and like the improvements must come from equipment or whatever. And that's what I'll get into. That's what I get to next once I'm done talking about setup shops, because that's a very pervasive attitude in sim racing in particular. Because I mean it's a similar thing in cycling, but at least people buy expensive bikes to be more aero and be faster, but they just simply realized that. Most cyclists realize that they have to pedal. I don't think most sim racers realize that they have to drive. But yes, that's the thing. Anyone who wants to be good at a sport or whatever spends money on equipment, training, and instruction. Yes. Hence me buying this bike. It's just how it is. And I think setup shops are, if anything, a very small part there. It's also a pretty small expense if you look at like the cost of sim racing as a whole. Exactly. £5 a month is not a huge ask. That's exactly my point. Like people vastly overestimate like the harm that setup shops do or whatever. Like they always go, oh, it killed free setup sharing. Oh, it made it pay to win. Oh, it's effectively a fixed series now. Well, shit. CSS or whatever gives you the fucking. You can get a subscription for £5 a month, and a lot of people just think it's worth it to them. Don't be mad, like shit. It doesn't make it pay to win or anything. Because I don't know if I'm thinking like how much it would cost to like pay a cycling coach. That's not £5 a month. Most services that provide you with like a training plan or whatever, that already costs more than £5 a month. Yeah, exactly. And if you do it with Twitch Prime, then it's essentially free. Exactly. That's exactly the thing. And even the most expensive setup shop in relation to the cost of in relation to the cost of sim racing as such, even the most expensive one isn't that expensive. And I'll get to this a bit more later, but if you want to just do sim racing on the cheap and you don't, particularly fussed with the, being very competitive and you just enjoy racing, like if you just enjoy racing in the sense that, like it's basically like going to a track day, like or like going to Touristenfahrten, you just go with your, I don't know, golf or something and you just pay 20 quid or whatever, 40, I don't remember how much it is, to do a lap. If that's how you do sim racing, then you don't need to spend £2,000 on a rig and another 2 on a wheelbase and then like spend, I don't know how much on every setup shop subscription ever. You do not have to do this. I don't know. I think a lot of people on the forums struggle a fair bit with understanding that they do not in fact have to pay for things they don't want. If you don't want to pay someone for setups, then you don't have to pay them. But you can't get their product and not pay for it. If you don't want to pay a plumber to fix your shit in your house, then you can do it yourself. But if neither you nor the plumber do it, then it's gonna stay broken. And I don't understand why that's such a difficult thing to understand for people on the RSing forums. You can, if you don't make a setup and you don't buy a setup, then you're running baseline. And if you're a shit plumber because you didn't want to pay a proper plumber and then you fix your own shit in your own house and then it's even more broken, should have paid the plumber. Same thing in sim racing. I don't know. If you build a setup based on baseline, it's even shittier than the baseline. Maybe you should have just paid someone that actually knows what they're doing. That's the whole thing. Everyone's always, longing for the days of setup sync because they could get a setup for free. And how do you know that they knew what they were doing? It's like this meme that says like, oh yeah, I've got a mate that can do it cheaper. Come on. Are you kidding? The only good share setups I ever got were Ford GT2, which basically had no options, and Lotus 49 and 79. Which makes sense because the 49 and 79 have like a very engaged sort of community. A very passionate community, but they don't have any sort of pro interest. All the pros that do, I don't know, normal open wheelers or GTE or GT3 or LMP2 or Porsche Cup or TCR or literally anything, they are not doing Lotus. And I'm not sure if, like, I don't know, if Josh Rogers or whatever, if he became a Lotus 79 main, I'm sure his setups would still be better than, I'm sure those setups would still be better than, I'm sure it'll still be better than the current top setups that are shared by the current top people in those communities, because I think you just need a certain depth of strength to really push the level, but it doesn't really matter because, let's be honest, it's a Lotus. It's a lot more about driving than anything else. Plus, if the top guys only use what they got, Yeah, but were those setups any good in the GT1? I don't remember. Speaking of streamers, and what about those streamers that share one setup a week for subs? It's still $5 and it's only a setup. Okay, so here's my opinion on that. I think they're not trying to be a setup shop, but they're also trying to be a setup shop. And I do see a little bit of a problem there. Because, like, if you advertise it as, oh yeah, if you sub, you get my setups, you're a setup shop. But if you just say, oh yeah, and subscribers get access to my setups as I feel like it and whatever, just cause, then I think it's a bit better. I think it depends a little bit how you market it, because if you basically say the only reason to sub to me is to get a setup, I don't know. Then you're a setup shop. I think as a streamer, people should be subbing to you because they want to support your channel and want your emotes and because they like you. Not because of setups. Squishy today. It didn't work well because of Tanner's attitude with people off camera. Oh dear. Okay. I'm not gonna discuss that on here. I don't know anything about that, and I'm not gonna drag people if I don't know anything. I'm only gonna drag people here if I do know something. So, hey. Alright, cheers. Always up for some spicy DMs. But anyway, just like disclaimer, this is my podcast on my stream and not Akaro's, and I'm not gonna speak on this matter. Chat is not my opinion. I'll say it when it's my opinion, just before anyone starts fucking complaining. Okay, yeah, because someone's bound to come in here and start shit eventually. I didn't think it would happen, but then, like, what was that last week? There's one fuckwit coming in here. Are you spreading falsehoods for fame? Blah, blah, blah. Jesus. Motherfucker. Notifications. Neat. I know, right? Agent Akara on the move. So, moving on to getting good, I think. Unless, shit, is there anything I've forgotten to say, didn't mention about setup shops or whatever? I think one thing I'd like to just say, just to make it clear, is I think, like, setup shops provide you with a very useful service for a small amount of money. The difficult thing is knowing what setup shop to subscribe for what car, and knowing what your priorities are. If your priority is learning to drive, get something that's focused on teaching you how to drive. If your priority is just getting a setup, then get something that builds the best setup for your car. But I think it's good. It's a good thing. And even if you build your own setups, they can significantly accelerate the process of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. What do I think about them not sharing their best work and still charging for it? Doesn't bother me as such, because in the specific instance of VRS, it doesn't bother me at all, because the focus of VRS is the telemetry and the driving school aspect. That is made abundantly clear in their marketing and in what they, provide. They say they provide you with data packs, not setups. I think they make it obvious enough that this is not about setups. This is about the driving school aspect. Oh my god. Oh, excuse me. Let me just fuck. I'll switch to a different scene for a minute. Hi. Oh. Okay, that was unexpected. Um, in the case of a pure setup shop not sharing their best work, I think that's also still fair. Um, cause cause the thing is also like you can't provide people with like a pro WCS level setup every week. That doesn't work because I'm pretty sure with any car with significant setup options, it takes more than a week to even build the bloody setup, right? Like, come on, it's ridiculous. Also, like the question is like, how much time do you spend on it for how much in return, sort of? Because I think if you spend 2 hours on a setup, you're a long way there. But if you can then spend another 8 hours on it to find another 10th. But is that worth it if you're just selling a setup to some random person? I don't think so. And I don't think they're under any obligation at all to share their absolute best work. Like, they can sell you whatever product they want to sell you. The decision is with you ultimately. If you go to, I don't know, some fancy restaurant where, like, I don't know, let's say you go to some fancy restaurant where a burger is 25 euros, or you go to some, I don't know, shitty restaurant where a burger is 4.95 or something. That's up to you where you go and what you pay for. And the 4.95 restaurant is not obligated to sell you a burger on the same level as the 25 quid restaurant. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a stupid analogy, but it's sort of how I feel about it. I don't really think they have to share anything in particular. Like, I think it's a bit of a shame that the level isn't as consistently high as it perhaps should be and maybe used to be. But you get my point. I think it's fine. Really, I think it's fine. They can even they can sell you something that's worse than baseline if people buy it. I mean, it's your problem if you don't notice after like a week that it's really shit. I don't know. Hey Ollie. Hi. What? I don't know what y'all have going on, but just do it somewhere else. It's interesting how PDS have a huge banner saying our setups will make you gain I rating. Yes. And I think it's probably like you can't probably really criticize them because like everyone should know that I rating is a results based matchmaking rating and that your results matter. Oh, okay. Didn't realize. I had no idea what's going on. I don't know anyone. Okay, great. But yeah, no, I think you probably can't like really do anything about marketing like that, but I do think it's a bit shitty, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I don't like it at least. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I can see why they do it. I can see why you probably couldn't really do much about it. Cuz it's like it's so obviously impossible to prove it or anything that it's like you know. It's like I don't know. Of course, like I think the expectations are silly and I think it's probably um yeah, I don't know. I don't love it. Because I think what bothers me a little bit is what VRS does is they say explicitly, this is a driving school. We're selling you data packs to improve your driving, and there's also setups. And then there are setup shops that say, oh yeah, we're not just a setup shop, we're a driving school. You need to learn how to drive, you need to watch the replays, user telemetry, yada 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 yada. But then all of their marketing is for setups. I don't know. I don't know how sincere that is, but that's not for me to decide. I think ultimately it's for consumers to decide. That's pretty much my opinion on that matter. Can I just say, I'm surprised that during all this time, in the fifth stream back now, there's been not a single fuckwit that came in here and tried to start some shit with me or harass me. I'm impressed. Like, really. Well, okay, no, that one guy tried to start some shit, but he didn't harass me, so that's pretty good. I certainly didn't go 5 streams in a row back then. So I don't know, something must have changed. Maybe it's because I don't stream in the iRacing category or something. I guess only my followers actually see this way, so that might be it. Maybe I just want to start some shit. Maybe I just need some spice. Some excitement. But anyway, I think I'm gonna move on and talk about how to get good. But yeah, it's a very cute mug, especially if you're adorable. Thanks, Danny. Quote, I actually find it quite ridiculous that PDS setups are the same price as VRS. PDS market themselves by going, we have Max Benecke, 11,000 R rating, and he will give you more R rating, while VRS go where driving school, try setups, and communicate to our coaches to get the best out of them. It's a very different approach to marketing. PDS markets to people the way that they want to hear it, and I think VRS is more doing the, you can actually get better, but you'll have to put some work in, And that's exactly what I'm going to get into now, because it's time to talk about how to get good and how not to get good. I guess a decent segue into that topic is just like pretty much this, really. I said earlier that there's this really pervasive attitude in sim racing that it's, I don't know, some 2K guy or whatever thinks that they're only bad because they don't have the secret top tier setup, they don't have the best equipment or whatever, and they're always chasing some paid way of improving without doing anything to improve. And the thing is sort of like in most other sports and even most other esports, that wouldn't work. You couldn't get away with that for so long. What are you going to do, play Rocket League and say, oh, I'm only hard stuck in bronze because I don't have as good a controller and my control settings and view settings aren't as good and my hitbox, like the shape of my car is worse or what? No. I can't think of a single other fucking game where, where you could just get away with insisting for years on end that you're only worse because the pros have some sort of exploits or hacks or better setups or better equipment or whatever. Can't think of anything. And like I said earlier, even in cycling, people spend a lot of money on equipment to go faster, but even there, people realize that you need to fucking pedal. There's nothing's gonna make... You need to pedal. You need to be fitter. Pros are faster than you because they're fitter, not because they have a $12,000 bike frame. Which often they kinda do, kinda don't. Because you can get the same model for less, but it's also like pro bike frames are not the same. Made in different factories, made differently to different specs and whatever. But anyway, different topic. In sim racing, we don't have that. Even if your favorite driver uses a particular direct drive wheelbase, you can buy even the exact same one. You can't even pretend that they have like a better one, If it's a SimiCube 2, it's a SimiCube 2. If it's a VRS direct drive, it's a VRS direct drive. That's the end of the story, But yeah, I think the hard truth is that you need to realize that you need to improve your driving. And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people are all too happy to find excuses because, I don't know, I feel like there must be some shame in being 2 seconds off the pace or 3 seconds off the pace or whatever. You know? I feel like they must be ashamed that they're getting beaten so hard at something that they thought they were good at. I don't know, or maybe they're ashamed that they're at only 2,000 I rating and then there's people with 6, 7, 8k and they think they're just as good but they are only at 2k, and I don't know if there's shame or what, but like they need to, I don't understand this like desire to always come up with some excuse, you know, to always come up with some reason why you can't be as good as other people. I don't get it. I have to imagine a lot of it is just men thinking that they're good at car stuff just because they're men. I wouldn't be surprised, at least, because I'm, you know, I don't know, it's a very pervasive sort of just stereotype, I guess, that men are good at stuff with cars and tech. Maybe it's just a bit rough to realize that just like going 250 in a straight line on a motorway is not the same as going fast on a racetrack. I don't know. But yeah. Chat, quote, at least in my case it was simply that I didn't see how I was worse and didn't understand what the difference between 2k and 8k actually meant. Yes. Yeah, I think that's sort of like a thing. I'll get to that after this. Remind me if I forget. You have to recognize in what you fail first of all to get better. That ties in with that. Remind me in a minute. I know a guy that is around 3k. He can go neck to neck with 6 or 7k guys, but he crashes every other race, and it's always everyone else's fault. Yes. That sort of ties in quite well with the lack of driving skill thing as well, to be honest. Because like I don't know, people can be like 3, 4, 5 seconds off the pace, and it's always some reason. There's always some reason that it has nothing to do with their driving. Like, oh yeah, I kind of messed up that one corner in that lap, but I can actually do it better. And then I don't have like the pro setup, and with like my pedals, it's so hard to brake correctly. And then like I don't have a direct drive, so like with that full speed brake, I mean, you can't go better than 5 seconds off the pace. I mean, it's just impossible. Shit. I think I'm a magician, you know. But yeah, no. To go back to what Yal just said, I think in other games, I think it's often a bit more obvious. It's a bit more obvious how you're bad. I don't know if you play Siege and you know you can't click head, but your enemy clicks your head. You didn't click the head. If you click the head, but after you die, then you didn't click the head fast enough. If you get shot in the back because you didn't hear them coming, or because you don't know the map, then it's because you didn't hear them coming, or because you don't know the map, because you don't have no like spatial awareness. Obviously, it's not a perfect example, because obviously just like tactics and map knowledge and meta and operator knowledge and everything does like you know, compound that, because I'm pretty sure you can click heads very, very well, but you know, if your team tactics suck, then it might not be obvious why you're losing all the time. But still. Or like in Rocket League, if you don't hit the ball, pretty obvious, isn't it? It's pretty obvious why you're bad. Or like, I don't know, if some good Rocket League player hits like some insane shot and like hits the goal, and it's like, holy shit, wow, and you can't do that, then it's also pretty obvious why you're worse. And I think in sim racing, people often just assume that if you take the racing line and brake at roughly the same point, that the net result is the same thing. So I don't know if you watch like shit, if you watch a quali lap on its own by Max Verstappen and you watch a quali lap on its own by Alex Albon, the laps will look similar. Just by watching one lap, you won't be able to tell that Alex just lost half a second to his teammate. Oh, that was quick. You get the point, right? Like, I think if you watch if you just watch the Albon lap, you will not see that he's half a second off. You know, if you watch, I don't know, if you watch someone that's terrible at Siege, you'll see them just not click heads. Yeah, and I think that's sort of like the point where like it's a bit difficult, for a lot of people to realize what they're doing wrong and how they're doing something wrong. Yeah, I jinxed it, but I didn't give a shit. Um, awfully entertaining. But yeah, no, like there's often this assumption that if you just drive the racing line, that you're set, that you already know how to drive. And you know, of course, like you don't see other people's inputs. You can't see that they brake up to 80% and then smoothly trail off perfectly, and trail brake just perfectly, and turn in just perfectly. You can't see other people's inputs. Okay, great. But what you can see is that they brake 10 meters later and still have a higher apex speed and still get on the throttle sooner and still have a higher end of straight speed than you. But people don't look for these details. They just think, oh, but like my car's taking the same line around the racetrack, so I must be doing the same thing. Like, people don't understand the finesse that is involved a lot of the time, I think, and they just drive and go like, oh, but if someone's 2 seconds faster than me, their car must be 2 seconds faster than mine. It's just so wrong. Like, you're just driving like shit. So step one of how to get good is to realize you're probably just driving like shit. And then we can have a look what to do, right? You know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand. I had the same thing initially, switching to the time model. I felt like the entries were all over the place. Especially in the Porsche Cup car, I thought like all of the entries are all over the place. Congrats, enjoy the DD. Yeah, people want immediate results, and people aren't happy to, or like people don't like admitting that they are not doing that they are doing something wrong. You know, that they are not as good as they think. That's the fierce like attitude problem here. Um. Yeah, CS:GO bunny hopping is a good example. I'm not too familiar with it exactly. I'm not really into CS:GO, but like I get your point. You know, oh, wow, I'm doing exactly the same thing yet I suck. Must be internet. Must be something. Yeah. But yeah, it's just the precision and finesse that goes much deeper than just doing the same thing. You know, driving a car on the racetrack is the easiest fucking thing ever. Especially driving a race car on the racetrack is the easiest fucking thing. Because really, if we're fucking honest, and I talked about that recently, I guess, as well, you can have a road car on road tires with some dinky little rear wing and 800 horsepower that tops out at like, I don't know, 360 down the longest straight. Or you can have a race car with a ton of downforce with incredibly grippy slicks, with 500 horsepower maybe. The tops out at 250 maybe, 260 at the end of the straight. You know? You can brake so late, it's easy. You're not even going that fast, it's pretty easy. You have all the grip in the world, all you have to do is not overdrive, and it's really fucking easy. You know, well, like, I don't know, if you think of some of the, like, obscene, incredibly high-powered front-engine road cars that are being sold just to normal people, if you try to go faster on a racetrack in that thing, I mean, you know that GIF with, I don't know, that SpongeBob GIF with like the big like Toro on the pedal? That's your throttle input, because you've got like, I don't know, 700 horsepower or something in a front engine rear wheel drive car on road tires. Race cars are pretty easy at that point. It's like you can pretty much hammer the throttle most of the time in a modern GT car and nothing's gonna happen to you. And if something is gonna happen to you, well, just turn the TC up. You know, like. And that's the thing, even in iRacing, driving a car on a racetrack is the easiest thing ever. If you can drive to the supermarket, you can drive around a racetrack. There's no traffic lights, there's no oncoming traffic. You don't need to even be that precise. You've got all the road to yourself. It's really easy. The thing is, I don't know, just you need precision, you need finesse, you need driving skill to go really, really fast. Because yeah, I don't know, because people always like push way too hard in iRacing, then they crash and spin and die, and they say, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult. No, just go slower, and it's really easy, actually, you know. But that's beside the point. I think literally anybody that drives a car will have bad habits, and actually, fun fact about driving to the store with a GTE car. Not the same thing, but like I spoke to Christian Engelhardt at one point. Back when he was still doing, is he still on Lambo? I think he switched to Audi or something. When he won GT Masters and Daytona in the Lambo GT3, and he said literally, like, it was like some sort of weird event or something, and he said basically like all of you could just get in this car and drive to the supermarket. It's really not a fuss at all. It's once you start going really, 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 really quickly, then it gets difficult. And it's not quite my point. I think my point is more that that people think that going fast in a race car is easy, or that anything in a race car is hard, but neither of those things are true. It doesn't matter how easy to drive a race car is, it's gonna be really, really difficult to be as fast as Josh Rogers in any car in iRacing. It can be the fucking, I don't know, it can be the fucking diesel Jetta that is super easy to drive. It's still gonna be hard as shit to be as fast as Rogers. You're just not gonna be crashing all the time, but it's still gonna be difficult. You know, that's my point. And then if we're driving the, I don't know, Porsche Cup car, and if you're like a bit clumsy with your inputs or something, you'll crash and die every other lap. In the Jetta, if you're a bit clumsy with your inputs, you won't crash and die every lap. But Rogers is beating you. No, like, Rogers is beating you. Going really quickly is still difficult, no matter what you drive. And that's also sort of, that ties in with like how people pick what they race in iRacing. Because GT and GT3 are incredibly popular. GT4 as well, TCR. All of those cars are relatively easy to drive, hard to crash. And I think because of that, people sort of think that it must be easy to go fast in, but that's never true. Oh shit, R8 on Portimao. Was that the old one? The old R8. Oh, that's a great point, Nina, actually. Quite. I feel like there are a lot of statements like race cars are hard to drive, and if you're in full control of your car, you're not driving fast enough. So I was always overdriving because I thought cars are meant to feel out of control to be fast. Yes, that's a thing often. I think that's also a thing that people often think in iRacing. That someone must be faster because they're pushing harder. And that's actually a great way to get to that point. Don't push. Just don't push. If you have to ask about how to get good, you're not good enough to push. Especially in iRacing. Because in some games, like ACC, RF2, I think, you can overdrive to a certain extent and go a bit faster as a result. So if you really go fucking balls out, pushing like mad, out of control on a quali lap, it can work. But in iRacing, it never works. If you remotely look out of control, you know. And the thing is, like with TCR, I don't know, like if on corner entry, if you're taking a right-hand corner and on entry your wheel is slightly pointing left, well, you're not out of control. It's just that you're slightly counter-steering to go with the rotation of the car, you know, that you're not, that you don't have to like turn right to go right anymore, because if you tip it in just a little bit and then you counter-steer to control the rotation, but you're still in control, you know. But that's already an extreme example in iRacing standards. You know, if you're opposite lock at all on entry in any car in iRacing apart from the TCR, I think you're already doing it wrong, you know. And that's, I think, the thing. Like, people think, oh, I'm 3 seconds off the pace, I just need to push harder. And then what they do is they're 3.5 seconds off the pace and crash. It's very entertaining always. Well, actually, in Porsche Cup, you can counter-steer on entry a little bit and rotate in a similar way, actually. At least I found. Let me, actually, haha, fun idea. YouTube. How do I stream my screen? Give me a minute. Display capture. Ah, perfect. Okay. Let's watch a little lap, shall we? Guess desktop audio. So this is me. You see, yeah, I had to counter steer a little bit there, but I never slid, so I was always in control. Here, if you try to push through that corner, if you try to attack this, you're already fucked up, because like you go over this bump here, and then you go over another bump here, and if you brake too hard, you lock up and go straight, or it spits you out and sends the rear end flying. So if you overdrive this, you actually lose. Like you do crash. But you don't, because there's only grass, but you spin awfully, horribly. I locked up my inside front there, but it didn't matter. I had to wheel it a bit there as well, but like again, it's fine because like I had to wheel it in order to not slide. And then you can always preemptively countersteer a bit over that hump there on exit so you don't slide. Same thing here, you have to open up the steering a lot so you don't slide over the bump or like over the crest on exit. But yeah, I think this actually illustrates quite well what you have to do. Let me catch up on chat. In RSing, you have to follow the magic line, a line in which you are automatically faster. I don't know. To an extent. I think it's not so much that the line is magic. I think it's just that in iRacing there is very little leeway for longer but faster lines. That's sort of the thing. Almost always we will want to take the shortest possible line, and that's just it. I think in real life there's a bit more room to go, like say late apex or something, to go for a wider entry. However, I will say, even in real life, often there's just like that one person that's just way quicker than everyone else, and maybe they just take the magic line, but we don't know about it because the 3/10 off guy is still like someone really good. I don't know. Oh my god, those tabs. Oh my god. God. Thanks, Danny. I don't give a shit about your stream on mobile at all, actually. Like, I really couldn't care less, so. Fix your shit. But yeah, so, the lap I showed, basically, the point is, it won't look like you're pushing really hard. And that was my fastest lap out of the whole, qualifying thing. It was like 2.5 tenths of the fastest lap by anyone qualifying. So it's pretty quick, is what I'm saying. You don't look, you cannot look out of control, because if you are, you're just slower. Like if you watch any Formula 1 pole lap, it's incredibly neat and tidy and smooth, always. And this whole notion that you need to be out of control to be fast, or that race cars have to be hard to drive, and if it's not hard to drive, you're not going fast enough. That sort of plays into this whole thing as well, because that's also been the thing in sim racing for the longest time, because the thing that sets sim racing apart is that it's difficult, right? Because like it's easy to drive Forza on console, and it's difficult to drive Grand Prix Legends. And I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's probably pretty damn difficult to be the fastest at Forza. And I'm also gonna go ahead and say it shouldn't be that difficult to slowly go around a lap in a Lotus 49. But, that's something that I think for the most part, as a community, we've moved on from, to this notion that sim racing has to be hard. But I still think it's sort of like people drive in such a way often, and then wonder why they're not going quickly. And then you watch literally like the top guys, and they're just like so smooth and perfect, never slide. And then some 2K guys pushing his fucking guts out. Oh well. What you said about hanging on, yes, about Indy 500 qualifying. The closest to hanging on you still have in real life these days is Indy 500 qualifying. Everything else seems still manageable for pro drivers. I don't know what you mean, like, at all. That's why I didn't say anything to that. I don't have a clue. If you could elaborate or like explain, then I'll try. I don't know what everything else seems still manageable means, but anyway. So yeah, first thing, realize that your driving sucks. Second thing is realize that pushing doesn't fucking help you. That it's not about pushing harder, it's not about trying harder, it's about finesse and precision and going closer to the grip limit for more of the lap. It's really easy to push so hard that you lock up on entry. You can brake 50 meters too early, lock up on entry, have a slower apex speed, and then light up the rears on exit, and your corner will be really terrible because either you're way above or way below the grip limit. And what you want to do is be on the grip limit the whole way around the corner. And that involves braking well, for the most part. Most importantly, braking sets you up for the whole rest of the corner, and it involves tuning in well. And it's anything but easy doing that so precisely. What I said about being out of control, when drivers say a car is difficult, drivers still seems well in control, whereas the Indy example is visibly close to losing control. Oh, I get you. Oh yeah, cause yeah, cause in Indy 500 quali they like run these like stupid setups where like you turn the wheel like this and nearly crash, Yeah. No, I get you. It looks like they're nearly it looks like they're nearly crashing the whole way around, but like it's a very specific scenario that because you're alone on track and you have to do 4 laps as quickly as possible. It's a very sort of specific situation. I don't think you could necessarily run the same or like do the same thing. I don't think you can do the same thing in a race. I don't think you can do the same thing in most qualifying sessions even, I think they're visibly close to losing control because in a way they are, but also just because the inputs are so tiny and precise, because I don't know if you watch some people. I don't know if you watch something like, I don't know, rallycross onboards, the inputs are big angles and shit, big inputs, but they're not really, it doesn't really look like they're losing control. If anything, they look like they're completely in control as they're sliding and whatever. And then like IndyCar is the opposite, where like the car is not spinning, but like they barely turn the wheel and they're like tiptoeing just to try not to die while going really, really fast, but yeah. Hey, Simone. What are my thoughts on one-on-one coaching sessions? Should people take them, or is it better to try and figure stuff out alone? I think it depends on who you are. I'm the type of person that has always figured everything out on my own. Everything. Teachers have not taught me much, like, ever. Like, not in a sort of not anything that I cared about. Obviously like school or whatever, but like school doesn't count here because you have to. But like, I don't know, if you talk about something like music, yes, I had classical piano lessons, but like I also like I learned the whole jazz thing on my own, and then I studied jazz and I didn't learn anything because I already knew everything that they did in the first 2 semesters and I dropped out. Um, and then like, I don't know, I bought a bass because I wanted to learn bass, and I've learned that on my own. Like I'm very much that type of person. I think I'm very much the type of person that's also good at just learning stuff on my own. It's not that I'm just like lazy or prefer it that way, or like it lets me get away with mistakes or whatever. I think I'm very good at looking at what I can do and can't do, what I need to improve, what I need to be mindful of. If you think of bass or something, I'm pretty good at not forming bad habits despite me learning on my own, despite not having a teacher that's watching my technique. But I'm saying this as someone that has very much had bad habits on piano because I learned everything on my own, So, and I think that is where teachers come in and are the most useful, is like giving you guidance on what to do and what not to do, and have like a second pair of eyes looking at what you're doing and identifying bad habits, identifying what you're doing wrong. And I think in that sense, coaches or teachers are probably useful for most people. Because I think I'm not necessarily part of the majority if I'm like this, if I'm good at figuring out how to learn something and what not to do, and all that. Oh, oof. Well, I hope. Did you end up getting surgery on it or anything? But yeah, people learn differently. Some learn better by reading, some by doing, some with the coach, etc. And that's exactly the point, I think. I think really you should. If you think coaching might work for you, go for it. If you don't think coaching might work for you, well, think about it if you can afford it. If it's worth the expense, which really, I mean, it's sim racing coaching. It's not that expensive, but try it. By all means, try it. The worst thing that can happen is that you found out that it doesn't help you. Seems okay. If you're committed enough to improving at sim racing that you're willing to pay someone to help, then I don't think the fact that it didn't help should put you off. Only like physical, like manual treatment or whatever they call it. Okay. Well, I'm happy to hear you can play again, and I'm hoping it's not causing you too many issues. If if you pay for coaching, it will take you less time to figure stuff out. Quote. That's very possible, I think. I used to offer coaching a few years ago, and I found the same thing with the people that I did coach. Is that like they frankly just didn't realize what they were doing that was holding them back, and then it was for me it was always like really easy to tell, because if someone is 2 seconds off the pace, chances are it's something big. Like if I set a lap time and they set a lap time that's 2 seconds slower, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out why, or like to figure out like some big things that'll get them like an extra second or something, be it taking a completely wrong line, be it braking weird or whatever. Like it's usually pretty big things, especially when the gap is quite big. And I think like certainly it seemed like they always got like their money's worth out of it, because it was just like they could have spent I don't know how many hours and money on VRS and trying to identify through telemetry what they're doing wrong or whatever. But then like the second problem that comes in with that is that if you found out what you're doing wrong, you need to convince yourself to do it differently, and you need to hold yourself to that standard. You need to hold yourself accountable to actively trying to stop those bad habits and whatever. It's for a lot of people, it's just simply easier if someone else tells them that's something that they need to stop. And that's actually also true for myself. I think if someone tells me that something that I'm doing is problematic or bad or whatever, it's a lot more likely that I'll actually change. And I think in that sense, coaching is probably useful for a lot of people, because, like I said, if I'm just like, I don't know, you're braking 20% too hard, you're in the ABS into every braking zone, don't do that. That has a different impact than if in the VRS telemetry you see that their input is 60% and yours is 80%. You see a difference and you see that you're losing time there, but like it doesn't have the same impact as someone telling you this is bad, stop it. What is the best coaching school in your opinion at the moment? I don't know. First of all, I'm too out of the loop to comment on that, even if I wanted to, and I don't actually want to comment on that. I think this is still too small of a business that I want to sit here and like drag anyone, whatever. Because like I have no problem at all dragging Fanatec for selling shoddily engineered stuff with terrible customer support for not an insignificant amount of money. I have no problem at all doing that, because they're clearly the market leader in like premium sim racing equipment, and I think what they're doing is pretty bad and they need to step it up. I don't have a problem with that at all, but I'm not going to sit here and drag, I don't know, that one driver and praise that other driver for doing better coaching. Even if I knew, I wouldn't do it. Yes, and the having fun part, that's the thing. Because the first 2 points that we've just identified, like the first thing is like realize that you suck, and the second thing is to stop pushing and start working on finesse and stop coming up with excuses and the thing is that I think it comes down to balance in this case. I think it comes down to finding a balance between putting in work to get better and deriving pleasure and satisfaction from what you're doing. Because you see, like, I'm probably, again, not really very average. Like, I derive pleasure from being good at stuff and from getting good at stuff. But I also just simply hate being shit at stuff. I cannot deal with being bad on base, for example. I cannot deal with going slow in sim racing, so I sit and practice until I'm better. I'm sure that I'm not sure if that works for other people quite the same way as it does for me. Because what I thought I would do this year actually is just get back into sim racing, maybe tank down to like 5k, 4.5 maybe, just cruise around, not sweat as much anymore, whatever. Yeah, no. Like, I load up the fucking game and I see I'm a second off the pace and then I work until I find that fucking second. I can't do it, you know? I can't go slow. I personally, I am incapable of not try-harding things. And I found that out about myself over the past few years that, you know, like, this is just what I'm like, and I need to find a bit of balance in the sense that it's okay that I try hard everything, but I need to know when to take a step back, and that I don't need to beat myself up for being 2.5 tenths off of the fastest time. That, you know, actually it's all right, you know, like because it would be very easy to say, oh, but I don't know, who was it? I think Kane or someone. 2.5 tenths faster. So shit. But yeah, no, actually, like, now I'm pretty happy about that. Am I satisfied with it? I'm not quite yet, but, you know, I've learned how to be happy with it. How not to beat myself up for it, you know. And I think, like I said, it's about a balance. If you enjoy racing and you enjoy the competition at whatever level you're actually at, and that's it, then don't try hard. Don't spend 2 hours a day practicing, because that's not what's fun for you. But if you're at, I don't know, 1500 I rating, 2 seconds off the pace, and it leaves you dissatisfied, and you wish you were better, and you're not happy with the level you're at, and you just, well, then I would encourage you, I would implore you to sit down and think about what you're doing, think about what your goals are, and if your goal is to improve, and if it's not to go pro, but if it is to improve, then acknowledge the fact that you're shit, figure out what it is that you're doing that is shit in practice. Don't overdo it, of course. You know, shit, unless you want to go esports pro or whatever, then you probably have to overdo it. Otherwise you won't be. You just won't be esports pro. But, you know, then practice and improve and track your improvement, and also just like you need to acknowledge it, see the improvement, and derive something positive from it again. Because, like, if you just practice for the sake of practicing but it's not actually fun, then I wonder why you're doing it, you know? People don't actually practice or don't practice well. Yes, that's also often a thing. Like, I think if you're dissatisfied with the fact that you're 3 seconds off the pace and you want to be better, then figure out how to practice, and then, like, you know. But obviously don't just mindlessly do laps and laps and laps and laps and laps. Oh yeah, I completely agree with that last point. That was the same thing for me practicing for the SimPower pre-quali. So it was Alton Park in a Porsche Cup, which the car had driven once since the last big update, and I've never raced Alton, like, at all. And I didn't practice because I was too busy talking to my girlfriend, and I basically did, like, I don't know, an hour, like 2 hours in the morning before the first pre-quali session that I did, and then I could only do, I don't know, my fastest lap was a 33.1. And that's the best I was going to do. But the quali session taught me a lot, but I couldn't apply it yet. And then I came back to it in a later session, and then my fastest lap was a 32.6. And I was half a second faster. I knew how to do that half a second faster, but I couldn't put it on a track in that same session. I had to sleep and come back to it later. And I think you can practice 2 or 3 hours as long as you're still being productive. Because if you're not being productive, it is not worth it. Because just pouring time into something does not mean you get a result. And mental recovery is as important as the practice itself. Because, like, I don't know, like with physical exercise, people always think that, oh yeah, it's the really hard training session that makes you fitter, but it's actually the recovery where your body compensates a bit too much, you know, where the body recovers but just recovers a little bit harder, and then you're fitter. And it's in the same way that the mental recovery just plays such a big role, in my opinion, when it comes to sim racing. if you do a 3 hour mentally super stressful practice session, take a minute to unwind after that. Get a good night's sleep. Come back after that. You need the recovery. You won't be faster if you do. If I don't know, if you do 18 hours of practicing in one session, then you go to sleep and you don't do anything for the rest of the week. That's an inefficient way of doing it. If you do 2 hours, unwind, relax, sleep, do 2 hours the next day, then with that recovery, during the recovery time, you've made the improvement. You've learned stuff during the practice session, and then after the like sort of mental recovery, you can apply it on the next day. You won't be able to apply what you learned in 2 hours in the next 2 hours. That never works. Also, it should go without saying, if you want to be decent, don't race drunk. Don't practice drunk either. Because apparently a lot of people in racing always like come home from work and, I don't know, whip out the beer or the whiskey or whatever, and then they race, and it's like, kidding? You don't, you're not gonna be good, are you? I don't know, but just saying, you can race drunk once you're actually good. This is true. I have been there and done that, and that was great. But it was only a rallycross race, which was like, I don't know, 5 laps or something. Thank God, because after those 5 laps, I did not know where up and down is anymore. I was fucking spinning. But yeah, no, but and that's the thing. Like, I think you need to do something that's sustainable in the long term and also sustainable in the short term. And doing 10 hours straight and then not doing anything for the rest of the week isn't sustainable in the short term, because in that 10-hour session, the first 2 are productive and the other 8 are just like mindlessly spamming something, just fatiguing your mind for no good reason. But also in the long term, you need to come up with something that's sustainable, because like, I don't know, like maybe do it like in phases. I don't know, you have your target event, and in a month out from the target event, you ramp up the practice and you sweat it, but then after that, you take a step back. Or if you do the same volume of training the whole time, then find out a volume that's sustainable for you. But like, I used to drive a lot back in my almost pro days, like a lot. But I don't think it was like practice. I didn't race much. I don't think it was efficient. I think I could have been just as good with less practice, but more productive practice. And that's part of what burnt me out so much, is because I was just practicing so much, chasing lap times during the one session, instead of saying, okay, I've learned how to do it, I'll sleep, come back to it tomorrow, and then I can do the lap time, you know? I was trying to get too much done too quickly. And that I burnt myself out doing that. So don't recommend that. It's also not that fun if you do it like that. Also, like the feeling of success always sucks. If it takes you 4 hours of straight sweating and then you set the lap time. You set the lap time, but you're also just knackered. I feel like it would feel better if like you went to bed after 2 and then came back the next day and then you do the lap time. It's like, yeah, damn, you know, like I felt the improvement overnight, you know, I felt the improvement of like learning how to do it the previous day and sleeping and internalizing it and then doing it on the next day, you know. I think that's a lot more productive. Yeah, perhaps, but I don't know, I always used to be like that. I used to be the same thing with like music, and like actually the start of this year I had a pretty bad experience because I don't know, I hadn't really done much bass practice or anything. I felt like I was playing a bit shit, and then I sort of decided like, oh, like, you know, shit, I only casually played bass, but I used to be a professional musician, so, you know, I wasn't happy with just like playing a bit of bass and being kind of terrible at it. So I figured, you know what, I'll find something hard to learn that's like way above my level, but then I'll just learn it. I'll just sit and learn it until I can do it. And I blew myself up so badly, like 3 days in a row. And then I was just like, okay, no, this is not sustainable anymore. I could do that when I was 17, sitting in my own room, just, infinite input, and eventually you get it done. But eventually I got it done. The same thing with sim racing practice. I could just sit there and I could just sit there and practice for 4 or 5 hours straight, and in the end I would set the lap time, but I felt shit. I can't do that anymore. It's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. And that's the thing about having fun. You can't like overwork yourself. You can't, even mentally, because like overtraining is a thing physically. Like if you do a super hard 4-hour workout every day, no rest ever, your body will shut down and won't do it. You will end up overtraining, and that's it. You've gained nothing. But it's the same thing mentally, in my opinion. If you do the same thing where you do a really hard, super stressful practice session 5 hours a day, every day, with no rest, never taking a step back, never, I don't know, you'll end up overtraining just the same way, just mentally. You'll burn yourself out so badly. Ask me how I know. So yeah, don't do that. Shit, don't do that. Yeah. Hi, Miko. Yeah, oh, decent. But the VOD, I'll upload the VOD on YouTube as soon as I'm done, and you can find that on Twitch as well. So, all right. But yeah, good to see you here. But yeah, point being, how to have fun. The first thing is to not burn yourself out, but also just you need to hold yourself to reasonable standards. You need to set attainable goals, I think. Because like the way I function is I see the fastest lap time and then I want to beat the fastest lap time. Unfortunately, that like Rogers and Job and basically half the PESC field exist, which means that I'm not going to be doing that. Which means that I'm never actually happy with how I perform as a driver, because there's always someone better. That's also not that healthy, and I've learned that. You need to be reasonable, and I think this ties in a little bit with what I said earlier, where like the 2K driver comes up with 15 million excuses why being 3 seconds off the pace is good. Actually, I'm not saying that. If you want to improve, you should push yourself, but you need to figure out what brings you the enjoyment. Because if you just enjoy racing and not getting taken out, you can probably do that while 3 seconds off the pace. If you want to race at a high level and not get taken out, you need to go a bit faster than that, but you don't need to be on pole in PESC for that either. If your goal is to be the PESC champion, well then, if you're Rogers, that's an attainable goal, If you're Sebastian Job, that's an attainable goal. If you're me, it's not, so that's why it's not my goal to be PESC champion, I think, you need to find a balance between pushing yourself and between actually being realistic. So if you just signed up to iRacing and you just got out of rookies and you have like 1400 iRating or something, take it easy, but push yourself. Don't maybe go like, oh, if I make it over 2K iRating, I'm like this shit, because you're not. But yeah, no, like I said, goals that are reachable but still push you, not something that you just manage just on your own. Because like my goal doing this qualifying for Sim Power, but I had done no practice because I was talking to my girlfriend all day. So my goal for the first session was to set a lap time that gets me that qualifies me into the pro class. I wasn't interested in being in the AM class, so I wanted to set a 5-lap average that puts me in pro, that is top 25 or top 26 in the session, or top 26 in the across all the sessions, I should say. So I did that, and probably that was good enough already. And then my goal for the second session was to set a 5-lap average that puts me securely in pro, not just barely. And then I did that. normally my goal would have been to probably be at least in the top five times. But given the absolute lack of practice, it would have been stupid to set the goal of doing a top 5 time, because I get nothing for it, because I'm in the pro class either way, and I'm just not going to achieve it. As it stands, I qualify pretty much like in the middle of the pro class, and I'll take that. That's better than I expected. My expectation was to just be in pro, so I'm not complaining. That's fine. And that's sort of the thing. Just be real. Be honest to yourself. If you're a TCR main, maybe it shouldn't be your goal to be like, I don't know, to easily be top 10 in pro or something. That's just in Porsche Cup. That's just not a reasonable goal at that point. Yeah. Hope that makes sense. Because I think you need to set goals that you can achieve in order to get something back from the effort that you're putting into this. Because it's not like, unless you're really good, but there's no financial compensation for this. We're spending money on this just to beat ourselves up for not being as good as we should be. I don't know. No, of course, Alex. That's totally the thing. If you're talking like, I don't know, NPC or TCC in Euro mornings, you better win that. I know, but yeah, we have talked about my standards, Miko. It was tough back then. Like, it's a lot better now. I'm happy to just, or like I'm not happier to do things where I'm not actually amazing, and it's just okay. Mhm. And I think also like cycling helped with that to an extent, because there's with stuff that's just like about like, I don't know, skills or technique or whatever, theoretically there's no reason why I couldn't match Roger's lap time right fucking now if I just got in the rig and matched the inputs. It's not that hard. All I have to do is match the inputs. With cycling, it's actually a very healthy thing for me, because there's nothing I can fucking do to, I don't know, match Roglic or something, because he's fit, I'm not. I physically cannot do that. It's physically impossible for me to perform on the level of a pro. And that's actually a very refreshing thing for me. Because everything I did up until now was not, sports. It was, sim racing, esports, I guess, and like music, where there's no physical limitation that stops me from just doing what I want to do, from being as good as I want to be. There's no physical limitation. It's a lot less of a hard barrier than that. And cycling is great, because thing I can do. If I feel I can only pedal this fucking hard, like stupidly put, there's nothing I can do. It's very nice. It's very nice in that sense. Because there's no point beating myself up over the level that I'm at. Because do I want to improve, get fitter? Yeah, totally. That's why I bought the bloody indoor trainer. That's why I'm doing this shit, isn't it? But there's also no point beating myself up for my current level. And that's refreshing. So yeah, I'm out of coffee. I think I've said most of what I wanted to say for today. No, there's one more thing I wanted to say. Haha. About iRacing, about iRating and skill. Actually, a pretty important thing that I wanted to say as well. There's basically the two camps. That one camp says iRating and skill are unrelated, and then there's the camp that says iRating equals skill. And I don't know, especially the first camp I find super annoying. in the forums, everyone's just, if I ever say like, oh my god, bro, like the AMG isn't 2 seconds off the pace. The AMG is not 2 seconds off the pace. Maybe like you at 1400 I rating should just, maybe at 1400 I rating, you just suck, then it's like, oh, the fucking 6K drivers talking shit about the lower rated people again, elitism, wah. It's like, the fucking, I don't know, it's so bad. It's literally a results based matchmaking system. I don't know if a platinum or whatever, like diamond Rocket League player says the bronze sucks at the game, it's just true because it's fucking results based matchmaking. Like, shit. It's not a perfect indication of skill, but it's a results based matchmaking system. If your results are good, you get a higher rating. If your results are shit, you get a lower rating. It's that simple, really. And I mean, of course, the thing is like, we have a lot of different cars. A lot of different like disciplines within road racing that all share one rating, which of course means, like you can have amazing racecraft and consistency in every car, but you might just be slow as shit in F3 and fast as shit in TCR. If you only race TCR, you'll have a high rating. If you only race F3, you'll have a mediocre rating, and if you race both, then you're in the middle, Of course, and also like if the SOF as a whole is higher in, I don't know, if you're, I don't know, in Porsche Cup, for example, I feel like the average I rating of the people competing is lower, which already means that it's harder to farm quite as high, but the point being, and I rating inflation is also a thing, of course, because with every person that signs up, there's 1350 that get added to the system. But anyway, point being, yes, I rating is based on skill because your race results are based on your skill, And I think certainly, if a GTE main with 6K or GT main in general with 6K I rating tells you a 1400 I rating GT main that you suck at GTs, is probably true. Is probably simply true. Well, I rating is based on race results, and race results are to a large degree influenced by skill. They're also influenced by not getting wrecked and not having your internet or computer shut off, right? So, your skill is also not based on your I rating. That's also, I guess, technically a thing. I think, how do I put it? Because the thing is, like, people race iRacing with the goal of increasing their rating. But that's not how it works. Because the rating is a product of your race results. Your goal should be getting good race results, not increasing your rating. I think this is actually true, Alex, because I'm pretty sure I'm better at TCR than you are at GTE. But anyway, actually I'm 6K, but still. What was I gonna say? Oh, it's there somewhere in this brain. I don't know if I actually tried. I could probably beat Alex, but I need to actually practice that car. So hey, um, but anyway, No, I don't want it necessarily. I don't enjoy it that much. I mean, it's alright, but I don't enjoy it that much. And your point being, I think people let their R rating decide what they do, which is a bit silly because it's a yes, accurate. This is true. Anyway, point being, you can't let your I rating dictate what you do. I rating is based on your race results. If you don't race anymore for fear of having a bad race result because it might tank your I rating, I think you're attributing too much value to the I rating, because it's not like it doesn't matter. That's not true. It matters for what split you put in, especially if you do special events. It actually matters a whole lot as for what split you put in, right? It is indicative of your skill to a certain extent because your skill is the biggest factor that plays into your race results. And your race results determine I rating. So the skill is the biggest factor that plays into your I rating, right? However, you can't attribute you can't give it too much value. You can't make it more important than it is. Because ultimately it's a results-based matchmaking rating. It's not your dick length, it's not your value as a human or as a driver, it's not how much you're worth, it's not any of that. It's how good your results are in a video game. Maybe not worth overthinking. I don't know, if you play Rocket League and you're really shit but you love it, you shouldn't be mad just because you're in bronze. If you play iRacing, you're really shit but you love it, it shouldn't matter to you that you have 1100 I rating. And the thing is, we're talking about such a small percentile of iRacers as a whole when you talk about the higher levels, that basically in any given race, in most official races with a pretty big rating and skill spread, you win and you gain R rating. So basically what matters more is how often you race official than how good you are. That's past a certain point. If you sort of enter the top, I don't know, 1% or something, where there's just so few people that through chance, if there's 100 signups, if you're in the top 1%, chances are you're the best, That's the thing. And because it's literally what the numbers mean. If you're in the top 1% and there's 100 signups, then it's pretty likely that you're the best. Yeah. But yeah, no, and I mean, you can care about it if you want to, but I don't think, I think people are taking it too seriously, certainly. Because, it is indicative of your skill in a video game to a certain extent. That doesn't really say anything about whether you're having fun. It doesn't really say anything about whether it's worth doing it, It's not like spending all this money on sim racing becomes worth it if you have more than 7k R rating. It's not. It's the same thing no matter how good you are. You're just paying money for equipment in a game to have fun, but that's literally all there is to it. So I think, of course, if you're being competitive and special events are your goal, then you need a certain amount of R rating just to make it into a good split. But I think especially past I don't know, 6k, I think maybe 5 even. I don't know, 5.5 to 6k I think is the point where you get into such a small percentile at the top of the iRacing player base that the rating almost is only indicative of how much you drive officials rather than how good you are. Because I have no doubt that if I raced 5 races a day in, I don't know, IMSA GT3 or something, just and I just don't crash because I usually don't crash. I am usually even pretty good at avoiding other people to try to crash into me. So no doubt that if I did that, I could have like 7 or 8k if I just raced. But I don't want to. So I don't find it fun. I'm happy to sit at 6k, you know? And I think people get too mad that, oh, but now I have a high I rating and now if I get wrecked out of a race, I lose 200. Yeah, that's how it works. Well, Alex, how do you think he farmed up to fucking 10k? Yeah, that's exactly it. Same thing with Hase. Yeah, of course, that's exactly it. That doesn't mean that they're the fastest. Because at that point, it's more indicative of how much you race and how good you are. But for most normal people, 6k and below, it's indicative of how good you are. Like, just deal with it, you know. But also in the same vein, I think a lot of people, a lot of people that are like within, I don't know, half a second of the pros, I think you probably have the potential to be, you have the potential to be up there. The question is if you have what it takes, sort of time wise, mentally, just the prep, you know, if you have the mental fortitude, if you have the dedication, and then if your skill ceiling is actually high enough. But you know, for most people that are like, I don't know, within half a second of the pros, I mean, you've got a lot of potential right there, you know, just the question is what to do with it. Yeah, but Martin Krönke also won 3 seasons straight of F1 or something, and that is a very high soft. You get the point. So I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about. Oh yeah, Miko, I completely get you. That was the same thing for me. I hit 6k a few weeks ago and then immediately lost it the next race. But I hit 6k and then I was just like, okay, I couldn't do this back when I actually was like semi-pro or something, you know, when I was almost pro basically, because I don't know, I kept getting wrecked, I kept spinning it, I kept choking every time I got close. Then I made it past the 6 and now I don't give a shit anymore. I made it past it once and now I don't care. Like, I don't know. Still think like 6.5 would be neat, just to look a bit more good, because like I feel like at 599 something or whatever, 5960, 5940, I don't know, something like that. I feel like I don't look very good, but that's just me being like vain or something. I don't know. Um. Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing for me as well. I at the start of this season, I did a random GT4 race at Spa. I got beaten by like some two French people, I think, and it didn't matter because I just gained like +3 or something. It was just fine. Like, it's pretty easy to maintain 6k. It's always harder to gain than to stay somewhere. You hear that? Fuck. Bad Nick. Um. Wow. But yeah, I think does anyone have anything else to add to the whole how to get good while having fun and R-rating discussion? Does anyone else have any more questions or anything else to any more points? Because yeah. Yeah, I completely agree, Miko. It's exactly how it is. You can slowly get it or you can farm it. It sort of makes no difference at all. I don't like farming, so I don't. Yeah, I also think leagues are actually quite neat because they sort of solve two of the limitations of official iRacing, and that's the first thing is that splits are determined by iRating. So basically, if you want to be in top split, you have to farm. And the second thing is a lack of live stewarding. And I say I'm biased. I'm a steward at 24 Hour Series Esports, but I think leagues are cool because of that. Yeah, I get you. But I also think like I said to you in DMs, I think like there's plenty of teams where you'd definitely fit right in, and you would not be the worst for sure. There you go. I'm less squish. It's funny that I look so squished today because like I actually weighed myself and I'm like back down to 54 kilos now, which I hadn't been in a long time. Yeah, this morning officially cracked 54, and then I look squish as fuck. Oh, is this 18 plus? Is this too much? Better not be. Better. This is legal. This is illegal. Legal. This is illegal. This is legal. Bizarre, but anyway. The joys of being a woman on the internet. But yeah, Marie definitely needs to get bonked for that one. Oh my god, what the fuck is that? Oh shit, okay. That's a bit extreme. Didn't think a little strip of belly would do quite that much for you, but alright. Dalty. Good readings. Oh, you followed, I didn't see that. Thanks. Oh my fucking god. Marie, you're on the wrong account. On the wrong platform. Oh my god. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording here, and then that goes on YouTube's, and I'll stream like another 10-15 minutes. I should chat with y'all, and then I head off. So give me just a minute, and I will end the recording.